this video I want to tell a story about a failure, space rocket failure, which have a lesson to learn, and we can get a very good insight why this failure happened. In October 2014, a space rocket which is named Antares, shortly after it cleared the launch pad, it went back to the ground, and the safety personnel manually exploded the rocket in order to minimize the effect of the explosion for the ground facility. While they recovered the component after the explosion, three teams built up to investigate about the explosion. One team from Orbital ATK, who was the owner of the Antares. The other is NASA, and the last team was from International Space Station, because the payload is going to International Space Station. All the team very easily find the problem. It is from one of the engine of the rocket, and specifically it was a turbopump which provide the high pressure oxygen for the combustion. But what caused a turbopump to fail was not known, and it made NASA and Orbital ATK to aim for the same problem with different probability causes of the failure. Let's keep the technical side for later discussion and look at this failure from other side. After the Challenger disaster in 1986, which a space shuttle exploded shortly after its launch, and it killed 7 crew members. It was decided that the space shuttle not used for payload other than International Space Station. So NASA used other companies and to deliver the space payload other than the International Space Station. Again, after there was another disaster, Columbia, which has happened in 2003, and NASA decided to retire the space shuttle, and there is no more space transportation system in the US to deliver a cargo to the International Space Station. During that time, in 2011, after the retirement of the space shuttle, US is depend on the Russia to access to the International Space Station. Moreover, during Obama pushed a strong partnership with the private sector for a space program, and after this happening, all of these provide a good opportunity for the private sector to develop a space rocket for delivering a payload to the space and ISS. Private sector always likes to minimize the cost, and also need to have developed a space rocket ready for launch fast in order to fill the gap of the not having a space rocket in US. In that environment, Orbital ATK with the Antares rocket is one of the NASA's contractor for a space program. To deliver cargo to space at a minimum cost, Orbital ATK bought an engine from Russia, which is cheaper and faster than design and produce a new one from scratch. This engine was produced during the Soviet Union. It was 40 years old, but it works perfectly during the previous launch and also the test. Back to detail of the technical. It was an engine which has a problem, but and they knew that a rotating component rub into the stationary component, which causes the heat and fire. The orbital ATK, but why these two parts came into contact was a question. Orbital ATK reported it is manufacturing process problem. So it means that during the manufacturing the part, they made a mistake and then it caused the rotating component rub into the stationary component. They said that after they recovered component, they see clearly a manufacturing error on one of the component, which is the cause of the failure. NASA has pointed out, yes, it is possible to see this damage, but it is not possible to say that either it is from manufacturing or from the test on the ground. Because if it is from the manufacturing, then the Russian company who make the engine made a mistake. But if it is from the test, then the design has a problem, which means that the orbital ATK has made a mistake in the design of the proportional system, how to fit the engine to the other component and design the whole proportional system. NASA has three reasons for that. One of them is 4 months before the rocket explosion, the engine failed during a test and it has the same error as the one which is exploded during the launch. They also check all the spare parts and previous test. There is no sign of this manufacturing error. Only one of the component motor engine has this problem, and it has also the extensive ground test. So maybe the test caused this problem. And the other is that this engine is made 40 years ago, and it's not possible to get information about how it is produced and about the manufacturing process. So the information is not sufficient. For the technical reason, there is also another story that a third company who helped orbital ATK make another reason for this failure, but it cost this company $50 million. I will back to this story at the end of this video. There are both technical and management recommendations to solve this issue, such as replacing the motor, better communication between NASA and orbital ATK, and also make more detail on the contract, and add some more tests for the acceptance of the engine. And it seems that the recommendation works because after 2 years, orbital ATK could launch Antares again, and it was a successful launch. Sometimes it is needed to push on the limit, and maybe a failure happens. If there is no failure, it means that you spend time and money more than necessary. However, not for a flight with a human on board. In that case, it is not a failure, it is a tragedy. If it is a non-human mission, it is only money for you spend money for learning from failure. The cost for such a failure are huge. imagine the losing space rocket, recovery of the component, investigation, delay of the delivering the payload, and many more costs. But still it is profitable to deliver a cargo with commercial space rocket and engine and other component from supplier which may be cheaper than designing a new one. Maybe in one video I have to do this boring calculation and to show how much they lose money by this failure and how much and how they can be still profitable. Before ending this video, I will explain about the story about losing $50 million with the, for the investigation. Aerojet is a company who provides the other client, his client, with the calculation and design of the propulsion system. They help orbital ATK for the propulsion system of the Antares. Earlier of the investigation, Aerojet tell the orbital ATK that the small component, small material debris in the oil of the engine caused the engine to fail. And NASA believes that the debris can increase the possibility of the failure. But orbital ATK believe that debris has no effect on the failure, and they put it aside, this reason from the failure. And Aerojet, in order to dispute the discussion, in order to end the dispute, paid $50 million to the orbital ATK and finished the and end the discussion. I end this video here and I come back with the analysis of the other space failure in the future, and let's I keep you updated. See you next time.